Nothing says your marriage is over quite like watching your husband sprint into a maternity ward with flowers while you're busy convincing a nurse that your mother's stubbed toe isn't actually gangrene. And yet, there I was, standing in the fluorescent purgatory of St. Francis Medical Center on a Tuesday afternoon, witnessing the end of my 15-year marriage between vending machine coffee sips. "The baby of that gentleman was born this morning," chirped the receptionist, smacking her gum like it had personally offended her. Behind me, my mother Vivian was performing her Oscar-worthy rendition of "Woman Convinced Her Minor Ailment is Terminal," while in front of me my reality was shattering faster than my mother's faith in WebMD's accuracy. I'm Sylvie Paxton, 39, mild-mannered librarian at Fairview Public Library, and apparently the last person in Fairview, Illinois, to discover that my husband Dexter, 42, regional sales manager at Midwest Paper Supply, had been busy creating inventory I knew nothing about. When I married Dexter in the summer of 2010, I thought I was signing up for book club discussions and arguing over whose turn it was to clean the coffee maker, not standing frozen in a hospital hallway, watching him parade around with a teddy bear that cost more than he'd ever spent on my birthday gifts. The teddy bear was wearing a "Daddy's Little Princess" t-shirt, subtle as a tornado in a trailer park. My mother chose that exact moment to escalate her performance. "Sylvie, tell them my toe is turning black. Black! That's the first sign of death approaching." "Mom, it's a bruise from dropping your Kindle on it," I replied without taking my eyes off Dexter, who was now accepting congratulatory handshakes from a doctor. A doctor? Like he'd done any of the work. Vivian Baker, 67, retired drama teacher, both professionally and personally, had moved in with us temporarily after her divorce 5 years ago. That temporary situation had outlasted 3 presidential administrations and my patience. Today's emergency was her third this month, following the suspicious mole, chocolate, and the heart attack, heartburn from her secret midnight hot pocket. "Are you sure that's your husband?" asked the receptionist, leaning forward to get a better look at my personal Greek tragedy unfolding in the maternity ward corridor. "Unless he has an identical twin who also wears the custom tie I gave him for our anniversary last month, then yes, that's definitely my husband," I replied, the words tasting bitter as day-old break room coffee. The Fairview rumor mill would be working overtime tonight. In a town where the most exciting event last year was the grocery store adding a sushi section, my husband's secret baby would fuel PTA gossip until at least next Easter. I had options. I could confront him right there, creating a scene that would give my mother's dramatics a run for their money. I could slink away, pretend I never saw him, and cry into a pint of Ben & Jerry's while Googling how to discreetly poison a cheating spouse, for research purposes only, of course. Or I could do what any self-respecting, underestimated librarian would do: gather evidence, formulate a plan, and execute it with the precision of alphabetically shelving the entire fiction section. I chose option 3. "Mom," I said, turning to Vivian, who was now showing her toe to a deeply uncomfortable janitor, "your toe needs specialized treatment. Very specialized. Let's go to the urgent care center across town." "But we just got here," she protested, clutching her purse like I'd suggested abandoning a child. "Trust me," I said, guiding her toward the exit while snapping a quick photo of Dexter and his baby gift. "I have a feeling the medical care will be much better elsewhere." Vivian grumbled all the way to the car about healthcare these days and how, in my time, doctors actually cared about gangrene. I nodded absently, my mind calculating faster than a Costco cashier on Black Friday. Dexter had been working late a lot over the past couple of years. His business trips to Springfield had increased. He'd been secretive with his phone. Classic cheating behavior that I'd willfully ignored because after 15 years, complacency had become our third roommate. As I drove to the urgent care center, which actually was better than the overloaded ER for my mother's imaginary emergency, I mentally reviewed our joint accounts, the deed to our house, and the evidence I would need to ensure Dexter's life imploded as spectacularly as he deserved. "You're smiling weirdly," Vivian observed, momentarily distracted from her toe crisis. "Did you get one of those brain parasites from the hospital? I saw a documentary about those. They make you smile right before you collapse." I'm fine, Mom. Just thinking about a book I'm reading. Must be a murder mystery, she muttered. If only she knew how close she was to the truth. 3 hours and 1. It's definitely just a bruise diagnosis later. I dropped my mother at our house with strict instructions to elevate her foot and watch her crime shows. Then, instead of heading back to work, I drove to Midwest Paper Supply's office park. Dexter's assistant Fern has always liked me better than him, possibly because I remember her birthday, and he still calls her Fran after 8 years. Sylvie, what a surprise! Fern beamed when I walked in with a box of her favorite cookies from the bakery downtown. Dexter's not here. Doctor's appointment, I think. Doctor's appointment. Right. I smiled, channeling my inner Stepford wife. Actually, I need a favor that might make you uncomfortable. Fern leaned forward, eyes sparkling. In a small town, being part of someone else's drama was better than Netflix. I'm listening. By the time I left Midwest Paper Supply 15 minutes later, I had copies of Dexter's calendar for the past year, his expense reports, and most importantly, the Springfield client addresses he'd been visiting so regularly. Except there was no Springfield client. According to Fern, who was delighted to blow up my husband's spot, Dexter had been logging mileage to Springfield, but the company's only Illinois clients were in Chicago and Peoria. The pieces were falling into place faster than my mother falls into conspiracy theories. My husband had a baby with another woman. That woman lived in Springfield, approximately 97 miles from our Fairview home. And in 3 days, Dexter and I were scheduled to host our annual anniversary dinner, where his parents, my friends, and half the neighborhood would gather in our backyard to celebrate our perfect marriage. Perfect timing for what I had in mind. I stopped at the library, told my boss I needed personal time, and drove home to start planning what would soon be known throughout Fairview as the event that made Karen from book club spit out her Chardonnay. Our anniversary party wouldn't be celebrating 15 years of marriage after all. It would be celebrating my Independence Day, with a special guest appearance by whatever secrets were waiting for me in Springfield. Wednesday morning arrived with the subtlety of my mother's complaints about the neighbors' wind chimes. Persistent, unavoidable, and increasingly annoying. I called in sick to the library, citing a family emergency, which wasn't technically a lie unless you consider discovering your husband's secret love child more of a family expansion. I waited until Dexter left for work, kissing me goodbye with the audacity of a man whose lips had clearly been busy elsewhere. As soon as his Subaru disappeared around the corner, I headed to our home office, the one place Dexter thought was safe from my organizing tendencies. "Don't touch my filing system," he'd always say, as if randomly stacking papers in piles constituted a system. Today, I wasn't just touching it. I was excavating it like an archaeologist who knew exactly where the treasure was buried. In Fairview, people think librarians are just quiet book pushers who say, shh, professionally. What they don't realize is, we're actually information specialists who can find anything. After 17 years at Fairview Public Library, I could locate a needle in a haystack, a particular comma in War and Peace, and apparently evidence of my husband's double life in under an hour. The credit card statements were illuminating. Monthly charges at Little Sprouts Boutique in Springfield, regular visits to Mommy and Me Wellness Center, a sizable purchase at Forever Memories Photography Studio 3 months ago. Dexter hadn't just been having an affair. He'd been building a parallel family like it was a DIY project from Home Depot. My mother chose that moment to appear in the doorway, leaning dramatically on her new cane, a purchase she'd insisted on despite the doctor's assurance that her toe was perfectly fine. "What are you doing home? Are you sick? Is it contagious? I have a very delicate immune system, you know," Vivian said, keeping a strategic distance. "Just looking for some documents," I replied, not looking up from the pile of receipts I'd found in Dexter's golf expenses folder. Funny how Springfield's finest golf course appeared to be a maternity store. "You have that look," she said suspiciously. "What look?" "The same look you had when you were 10 and found out your father was taking his secretary to Hawaii. You're hunting." Sometimes I forget my mother taught high school drama for 30 years before retiring. She can spot a performance a mile away, even when the performer doesn't know they're on stage. Dexter has a baby with another woman, I said flatly, surprising myself with how easily the words came out. I saw him at the hospital yesterday. To Vivian's credit, she didn't gasp or faint or launch into one of her trademark monologues about the fragility of love. Instead, she nodded slowly and said, "I've been waiting for this shoe to drop for at least a year." "Excuse me? Honey, he's been taking overnight trips to the same place for 2 years, comes home smelling like baby powder, and last Christmas he accidentally wrapped a onesie with your scarf. I figured you knew and were just waiting for the right time to confront him." I stared at my mother, momentarily forgetting the betrayal blazing through my veins. "You knew and didn't tell me?" "Sylvie, darling, there are 2 types of information in this world. The kind people want to hear and the kind they don't. Besides, I thought maybe you had one of those modern arrangements. The ladies on my true crime podcast have all sorts of complicated marriages these days." Before I could process the fact that my mother thought I was in some sort of polyamorous relationship with a baby mama in Springfield, my phone pinged with a text from Fern. "Found the woman. Her name is Maren Wilson. Works at Springfield Community Hospital as a nurse. Address attached. Also, Dexter just called in sick for tomorrow. Said he has food poisoning. Want me to poison his actual food? I know people." I made a mental note to give Fern a substantial gift card this Christmas. "Mom, I need you to cover for me tomorrow. If Dexter asks, tell him I had to handle an emergency cataloging crisis at the library." Vivian brightened, always eager for a role. "What kind of emergency? Should I wear something specific? Do you want me to cry when I tell him? Or should I be stoic? Just tell him I'll be back late and not to wait up. No costume necessary." The drive to Springfield the next morning gave me plenty of time to rehearse confrontations in my head, each version ending with me delivering a devastating one-liner before walking away in slow motion, while Dexter's world exploded behind me. Reality, as usual, had other plans. Springfield Community Hospital was smaller than St. Francis, with a cheerful yellow lobby that felt inappropriately sunny for the nuclear bomb I was about to detonate. At the reception desk, I channeled my inner Karen. "I need to speak with Maren Wilson immediately. It's a family emergency." The receptionist, whose name tag read Joy in Comic Sans, which felt like a personal attack, frowned slightly. "Maren's with a patient. Can I take a message? Tell her it's about Dexter Paxton and their baby. I'm sure she'll want to hear what I have to say." Joy's eyes widened to the size of the novelty coffee mugs sold at our library fundraisers. Oh, I'll page her right away." 15 excruciating minutes later, a petite woman with copper hair and freckles approached cautiously, still wearing scrubs with tiny teddy bears on them. She looked like she belonged on a greeting card, not in the center of my marital apocalypse. "Are you here about Dexter?" she asked, her voice soft but not fearful. "I'm Sylvie, his wife." To my surprise, Maren didn't gasp or run or dissolve into tears. Instead, she nodded slowly, as if confirming something she'd long suspected. "I thought this might happen eventually. I'm actually glad it has," she said, gesturing toward a small courtyard. "Can we talk outside?" As we sat on a bench under a sad-looking maple tree, Maren revealed that she'd met Dexter 3 years ago at a medical supplies conference. He'd told her he was divorced, his ex-wife a controlling librarian who had taken everything in the settlement. "He said you wouldn't even let him have visitation with the dog," Maren said, twisting a tissue between her fingers. "We've never had a dog." "Dexter's allergic," I replied, the absurdity of his lies almost impressive in their creativity. As Maren continued talking, a portrait emerged of a man I barely recognized, one who spent weekends playing devoted father to their 8-month-old daughter Ellie, who had a nursery in Maren's modest ranch house, who had promised marriage once his financial situation stabilized. "He was here yesterday for Ellie's checkup," she explained. "He always brings that ridiculous bear. The nurses call him Teddy Dad behind his back." I should have felt rage, but instead, a strange calm settled over me, the kind that comes when puzzle pieces finally click into place. Dexter hadn't just betrayed me. He'd created an entire fictional autobiography to betray her too. "Does he know you're here?" Maren asked, her green eyes searching mine for clues about what came next. "No," And he won't know until tomorrow night, when we're hosting our 15th anniversary party with 40 of our closest friends, his parents, and my boss. Something shifted in Marin's expression. A hardening. A recognition of shared wounds. "What exactly did you have in mind?" she asked. By the time I left Springfield that afternoon, Marin and I had formed the kind of alliance that could only be forged in the fire of spectacular betrayal. As I drove home, rehearsing what I would say to Dexter when he returned from his food poisoning day trip to visit his secret family, I realized something unexpected. The pain I'd anticipated feeling had been replaced by something far more useful: cold, calculating clarity. Our anniversary party had just gotten a lot more interesting, and the guest list had expanded by 2. Friday dawned with the promise of justice served colder than the potato salad at a Fairview community picnic. I greeted Dexter with the same manufactured smile I use for patrons who return books with coffee stains, pretending everything was normal, while he pretended he hadn't spent yesterday playing Father Knows Best in Springfield. "Feeling better?" I asked as he shuffled into the kitchen, performing his recovering from food poisoning routine with all the authenticity of a gas station Rolex. "Much better," he replied, pouring coffee into his world's greatest husband mug. An irony so thick you could spread it on toast. "Though I should probably take it easy today. Those shrimp must have been bad. Interesting choice, considering we hadn't eaten shrimp in 3 months." I made a mental note to add this to what I now called my Exhibit A collection. "Good idea. Rest up for our big celebration tonight," I said, buttering my toast with unnecessary precision. 15 years is a milestone worth celebrating properly. Dexter's smile flickered like a dying light bulb. "About tonight. I was thinking maybe we should keep it small this year. Just family. I'm still not feeling 100%. Too late, Dexter." The wheels were already in motion, rolling directly toward the cliff I'd built specially for his reputation. "Absolutely not," I replied, channeling my mother's flair for drama. "Your parents are driving in from Milwaukee. My boss is coming. Fern has been talking about her new dress for weeks. The caterers are already prepping. The show must go on." Dexter nodded, defeated by the social obligation armor I'd wrapped around our party. In Fairview, canceling a large event last minute was only acceptable for hospital visits or funeral arrangements, neither of which I was willing to provide him, yet. After he left to work from home in our basement office, I called Vivian, who was at her weekly senior yoga class, theoretically stretching her toe back to health. "Operation Anniversary is a go," I whispered, despite being alone in the kitchen. "I need you to pick up the special order from Fairview Bakery at 2 p.m. sharp." "Roger that," Vivian replied with inappropriate enthusiasm. "Should I wear my navy pantsuit or the burgundy dress with shoulder pads?" "This isn't about you, Mom." "Everything is about costume design, Sylvie. I taught drama for 30 years. The burgundy it is. Perfect for the supporting character who might need to step into a leading role." Before I could protest that this wasn't a community theater production of The Betrayed Librarian, she hung up. At least her commitment to the cause was unwavering. My next call was to Fern, who answered on the first ring as if she'd been waiting by the phone. "Tell me you've ruined him," she said, instead of hello. "Not yet, but I need one more favor." "Name it. I've been collecting his annoying habits in a spreadsheet for 7 years. I made a mental note never to cross Fern. "Can you make sure everyone from the office comes tonight? Especially Harrison from accounting. The one Dexter stole the Pinewood account from? Consider it done. Harrison still has the PowerPoint slides proving it was his work." By noon, I'd confirmed that all 40 guests were still attending, the catering was on schedule, and the special slideshow I'd prepared was loaded onto a USB drive that would connect seamlessly with our backyard projection system. The same system Dexter had insisted on buying last summer for outdoor movie nights that mysteriously never materialized because he was always working late. At 1 p.m., I received a text from Marin. "We're ready whenever you are. Ellie has her special outfit on. She looks adorable." Attached was a photo of a cherubic baby girl wearing a onesie that read, "Daddy's Little Secret," a custom rush order from a print shop in Springfield that had cost me extra, but was worth every penny. Everything was falling into place with the precision of a well-organized card catalog. Then my phone rang again. Dexter's mother, Eleanor Paxton, calling from the road. "Sylvie, dear, we're about an hour away. I've brought Dexter's baby book for the anniversary display. I found the sweetest photos of him as an infant. The universe apparently had a flair for irony that rivaled my own. That's perfect, Eleanor, I said, inspiration striking like lightning. Actually, could you bring all the family albums you have? I'm putting together a special presentation. Oh, how wonderful. I have 5 albums in the car. Roland thought I was being excessive, but I told him anniversaries are about family history. If only she knew how prophetic those words were. By 4 p.m., our backyard had transformed into a Pinterest-worthy celebration space. White fairy lights draped from trees, photos of Dexter and me through the years, strategically ending at year 12 when his trips to Springfield began, decorated the tables, and a 3-tier anniversary cake from Fairview Bakery stood proudly on the dessert table. What the guests wouldn't notice, yet, was that the top tier of the cake featured a custom topper hidden under a decorative cover, waiting for its dramatic reveal, or that the photo slideshow scheduled for 8 p.m. had been edited significantly from previous year's versions. Vivian returned from her errands looking like she was auditioning for Real Housewives of Fairview in her burgundy dress and impractical heels. "Everything is set," she stage whispered. I added some dramatic touches to the cake table. Every production needs proper set dressing. I peered outside to see she'd surrounded the cake with theatrical red roses and what appeared to be library-themed confetti. The tiny books and spectacles sprinkled across the white tablecloth were actually somewhat charming, in a nerdy librarian revenge sort of way. At 5 p.m., Dexter emerged from the basement, showered and dressed in his special occasion blue button-down that brought out his eyes. Eyes I once thought looked at me with love, but now recognized as windows to an elaborate fiction. "Wow, you've outdone yourself," he said, surveying the backyard. "The place looks amazing." "Well, 15 years is a big deal," I replied. "Some would say it deserves special recognition." Something in my tone must have triggered his self-preservation instincts because he gave me an odd look. "Are you feeling okay? You seem different." "Never better," I smiled, just excited to celebrate our marriage in front of everyone who matters to us. At 6 p.m., the first guests arrived, my co-workers from the library bearing wine and well wishes. By 6:30, the backyard was filling nicely, with Dexter's parents holding court near the drinks table, telling anyone who would listen about how they knew from the start that Dexter and I were perfect for each other. At 6:45, Fern arrived with 6 colleagues from Midwest Paper Supply, including Harrison from accounting, who made a beeline for Dexter with the intensity of a man on a mission. At 7 p.m., I checked my phone to find another text from Marin. "Parked down the street as discussed. Waiting for your signal." Everything was proceeding according to plan, the pieces moving across the board with the inevitability of a well-played chess match. Dexter, for his part, seemed increasingly nervous, checking his phone frequently and casting suspicious glances in my direction. At 7:30, as the golden hour cast a deceptively romantic glow over our gathering, I clinked my glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate 15 years of marriage," I began, watching Dexter's face carefully. "Before we cut the cake and start the slideshow, I'd like to make a toast to my husband." The crowd murmured appreciatively, glasses raised, completely unaware that they were about to become the audience for the most dramatic production Fairview had ever seen. "But first," I continued, "I believe we're still missing a few guests of honor. Would everyone please direct their attention to our driveway?" I announced, my voice carrying across the backyard with the authority I usually reserved for telling teenagers that TikTok videos were not permitted in the biography section. On cue, Marin's silver Honda pulled up, and the party went silent faster than the library during state testing week. Dexter's face transitioned through more emotions than a daytime soap opera marathon: confusion, recognition, horror, and finally, the pallor of a man watching his carefully constructed house of lies collapse like a souffle in an earthquake. "Sylvie, what is this?" he hissed, grabbing my elbow as Marin emerged from the car, baby carrier in hand. "This," I replied, loudly enough for our nearest guests to hear, "is the rest of your family joining the celebration. 15 years of marriage, 8 months of fatherhood. Why celebrate just one milestone?" Eleanor Paxton, puzzled but still maintaining her Midwestern politeness, was the first to approach Marin. "Hello there. Are you friends of Sylvie's?" "Not exactly," Marin replied with remarkable composure. "I'm Marin Wilson, and this is Ellie, your granddaughter." The backyard erupted like someone had thrown a lit match into a fireworks factory. Eleanor's polite smile froze on her face. Roland Paxton dropped an entire plate of cocktail shrimp. My boss knocked over her wine glass. And Vivian, bless her dramatic heart, gasped so theatrically she nearly fell off her decorative garden chair. "I don't understand," Eleanor stammered, looking from Marin to Dexter to me in rapid succession. "It's quite simple, really," I said, taking the baby carrier from Marin and placing it gently on a nearby table. While Dexter was telling me he was working late in Springfield, he was actually starting a second family. Meet Ellie Paxton, born January 15th this year. Isn't she adorable? She has Dexter's eyes, don't you think? Eleanor bent over the carrier and gasped again, this time with recognition rather than shock. The Paxton eyes, a distinctive hazel with amber flecks, were unmistakable, staring up from Ellie's cherubic face. Dexter lunged forward, his face a shade of red previously unknown to science. "This is insane. I can explain—" "Oh, please do," I interrupted, my voice sweet as artificial sweetener. "Explain to everyone how you told Marin you were divorced. Explain the nursery you helped decorate. Explain the daddy's little princess teddy bear you brought to the hospital on Tuesday, the same day I took my mother to the emergency room and saw you there." The crowd had formed a semicircle around us, 40 pairs of eyes locked on the unfolding drama. Fern was recording everything on her phone with the dedication of a documentary filmmaker, while Harrison from accounting watched with undisguised glee. Dexter's survival instincts finally kicked in. "Can we discuss this privately?" he pleaded, sweat beading on his forehead like condensation on a cold glass of schadenfreude. "Why start having private discussions now?" I asked. "You've been living a very public lie. I think it's only fair we have a very public truth." Then I turned to our guests, switching to my best librarian storytelling voice. "For those who need the full story, let me catch you up. 3 years ago, Dexter met Marin at a medical supplies conference. He told her he was divorced from his controlling ex-wife, that's me apparently, who took everything in the settlement, including visitation rights to our non-existent dog. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Dexter looked like he might either faint or make a run for the hedge maze at Fairview Botanical Gardens. Meanwhile, back in Fairview, I was the clueless wife, believing my husband was working late, attending paper supply emergencies, and occasionally eating bad shrimp that gave him food poisoning. I made air quotes around food poisoning so emphatic they could have generated wind power. "Sylvie, please," Dexter started. "Oh, I'm not done," I continued. "Let's talk about finances. While I was dutifully depositing my librarian's salary into our joint account, Dexter was maintaining a second household. The evidence is all here in what I call Exhibit A." On cue, Vivian wheeled out a presentation board I'd created, a masterpiece of organization showing credit card statements, receipts, and calendar screenshots, all neatly categorized and labeled with color-coded tabs. The Little Sprouts boutique in Springfield has apparently been the beneficiary of approximately $12,000 of our joint savings over the past year. That's not including the professional photo shoot, the nursery furniture, or the monthly dinners at Bella Rosa, where Dexter conducted his alternate life as divorced dad of the year. Eleanor Paxton had progressed from shock to righteous maternal fury. "Dexter James Paxton, what have you done?" she demanded, using the triple name technique that strikes fear into the heart of any child, regardless of age. Marin stepped forward, her composed demeanor at odds with the chaos surrounding her. "I had no idea Dexter was married," she said, addressing the crowd but looking directly at Eleanor. "When I discovered the truth this week, I was as shocked as all of you. I came here today because I believe in facing reality, no matter how painful. That was my cue for the coup de grace. Speaking of reality, it's time for our anniversary slideshow." The projector screen I'd set up flickered to life, but instead of the usual parade of happy couple moments, it displayed a split-screen presentation. On the left, photos of Dexter and me throughout our marriage. On the right, screenshots of text messages between Dexter and Marin, his secret bank account statements, and photos Marin had provided of Dexter playing the devoted father role in Springfield. "I call this presentation a tale of two Dexters," I announced. Or should I say a tale of two deceivers? The slideshow advanced automatically, each image more damning than the last, accompanied by captions I'd spent hours perfecting for maximum impact. The crowd's reactions ranged from horrified gasps to uncomfortable laughter to outright applause when particularly damning evidence appeared. Dexter stood frozen in place, watching his double life projected in high definition for everyone who mattered in Fairview to see. When the final slide appeared, a simple question that read, "Any questions?" he finally broke. "Fine. Yes, I have another family. I made a mistake," he shouted, his voice cracking. "But you were always so absorbed in your books and your mother moved in and I felt invisible in my own home." The victimhood attempt fell flat as a pancake at the bottom of a pool. Eleanor Paxton stepped forward, removing her cardigan like a fighter preparing for battle. "Dexter James, your father and I did not raise you to be this kind of man," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "Your grandfather would be ashamed." For Midwesterners, invoking ancestral disappointment was the nuclear option. "Now," I said, turning to the cake table, "who's ready for dessert?" As if orchestrated by the gods of karma themselves, I unveiled the cake topper, a custom-made miniature of a librarian holding open a book titled Grounds for Divorce, a Complete Guide. "I've taken the liberty of drafting the divorce papers," I announced, passing a manila folder to Dexter. "You'll find I'm being quite generous considering the circumstances. You can keep your secret family, but the house and half of our savings stay with me. And of course, your mother's heirloom ring that you promised would stay in the family. Well, technically it will, just not with the family you thought." The crowd erupted in applause, led enthusiastically by Fern and Harrison from accounting. Even Roland Paxton, a man of few words and fewer displays of emotion, nodded approvingly. Dexter, defeated and deflated, looked around at the faces of friends, colleagues, and family, all witnesses to his spectacular downfall, and did the only thing left to do. He signed the papers right there on the anniversary cake table, using the commemorative pen we'd received as a wedding gift from the Fairview Library Board. 3 months after what Fairview now refers to as the Librarian's Revenge, or as the high school drama club calls it in their unauthorized reenactment, How to Catalog a Catastrophe, life has settled into a new normal that's surprisingly comfortable, like breaking in sensible shoes or finally admitting that skinny jeans were never your friend. Dexter moved to Springfield permanently, though permanently might be optimistic since Marin kicked him out after discovering he'd been skimming money from their joint account to gamble online. Last I heard, he's living in a studio apartment above Jimbo's sports bar and telling anyone who'll listen that he's the victim of female conspiracy. The conspiracy apparently includes the judge who ordered him to pay both child support and alimony, the bank that froze his accounts after finding evidence of fraud, and the Springfield Community Hospital Ethics Board that denied his application for a cushy administrative position. Meanwhile, I kept the house, half our savings, minus the $12,000 he'd already spent on his secret family, and something far more valuable, my dignity, wrapped in a shiny bow of community support. Nothing brings a small town together quite like spectacular public humiliation of a deserving party. Eleanor and Roland Paxton, to their eternal credit, have remained firmly in my corner. Eleanor calls weekly to check on me and to provide updates on her attempts to rehabilitate our son into a decent human being. Roland mostly grunts in agreement in the background. They've also embraced their role as grandparents to Ellie, creating the strangest extended family arrangement Fairview has ever gossiped about, which is saying something in a town where the mayor once accidentally married his second cousin, twice removed, but still. Maureen and I have developed an unexpected friendship built on the solid foundation of having survived Hurricane Dexter. We meet for coffee twice a month to compare notes on his latest ridiculous excuses for late payments, and to admire Ellie, who has her father's eyes but thankfully seems to have inherited her mother's moral compass. I've become something of an honorary aunt, sending age-appropriate books with feminist themes and college fund contributions on major holidays. As for my mother, Vivian has finally found her true calling, regaling her senior yoga group with increasingly elaborate versions of the librarian's revenge. In her latest telling, I apparently rappelled from the roof to make my entrance, and had hired a choir to sing a custom ballad about infidelity set to the tune of The Star-Spangled Banner. She's never let facts get in the way of a good performance. The most surprising development came 6 weeks after the party, when Harrison from accounting asked me to dinner. Turns out, watching someone systematically dismantle a lying spouse with the precision of a surgical strike is his love language. We're taking things slow, but he appreciates my organizational skills and hasn't once claimed to have food poisoning when he actually has plans with another woman, so the bar is admittedly on the floor, but he's clearing it nicely. Fern, now promoted to office manager after exposing multiple accounting irregularities in Dexter's expense reports, sends me a fruit basket every month with cards saying things like, "Thanks for the career boost," and "Revenge is sweet, but promotion is sweeter." She's dating the delivery guy who brings the baskets, proving that karma works in mysterious and occasionally fruit-filled ways. People often ask if I regret the public nature of my revenge. Wouldn't a private confrontation have been more dignified? Perhaps a quiet divorce without the community spectacle? Maybe a civilized mediation with neutral third parties? To which I say, absolutely not. Some betrayals are so complete, so breathtakingly audacious, that they deserve to be met with equal dramatic force. Dexter didn't just cheat on me. He created an entire alternate reality where I was the villain of his story, the controlling ex-wife who wouldn't even let him see the dog we never had. He spent our joint savings on another family while I budgeted carefully to maintain our home. He looked me in the eyes every night for 3 years and lied with the casual ease of someone ordering their regular coffee. That level of deception doesn't deserve privacy. It deserves a spotlight and a captive audience. The anniversary party footage, tastefully edited by Fern to remove anything that might traumatize young Ellie when she's older, has become something of a local legend. The Fairview Library now hosts a monthly Truth and Consequences book club, where we discuss literature about betrayal and resilience while drinking wine and occasionally burning symbolic items in a fire pit behind the reference section, with proper fire safety measures in place, of course. I'm still a librarian at heart. If there's a moral to this story, besides the obvious don't start a secret family if your wife knows how to create devastatingly effective presentation boards, it's this. Librarians spend their professional lives organizing information, finding connections between seemingly unrelated facts, and presenting complex material in accessible formats. Cross us at your peril. As for me, I've learned that life doesn't always follow a neat narrative arc with properly cataloged chapters. Sometimes there are unexpected plot twists, unreliable narrators, and sequels you never anticipated. But with the right research skills and a well-executed revenge plan, you can always edit your own story and start a new edition. Just make sure to keep the receipts, both metaphorically and literally. They make excellent visual aids for anniversary party slideshows.